Hey everyone, it's been a while, but we're going to continue with these Bible reading videos. And today's Bible reading is Numbers chapter 12 and Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. As we jump into Numbers chapter 12, we see that Miriam and Aaron, the brother and sister of Moses, begin to have a problem with him. And this is really interesting. And let's just set the stage for the story. The people of Israel are in the wilderness. And remember, this is how the story goes. The people of Israel go down to Egypt when Joseph is ruling that land. They go to survive the famine. They begin to multiply. They become so numerous that 400 years later, Pharaoh says, I can't let them survive. They're gonna overtake us. They're gonna outnumber us. They're gonna take over our country. And so he starts to oppress them. He puts them into slavery. He ends up killing their children. God sends a deliverer, Moses, to come and say to Pharaoh, let my people go. And remember that Moses goes along with Aaron. And Aaron is a spokesperson for Moses. So it's kind of like the dynamic duo, okay? It's kind of like Batman and Robin. You have Moses, who is leading the charge, who is God's chosen instrument. Aaron, who's helping him. And then Miriam is their sister, and she begins to play a part in this later. Now, remember, they're gone, okay? So they've gone out of Egypt. They pass through the Red Sea. God splits the sea. They go into the wilderness, and almost immediately, and this might seem crazy, but almost immediately they begin to complain, and they begin to believe that maybe they should have just stayed in Egypt, and they aren't fully trusting God, and particularly they're not fully trusting God's man, Moses. Now, as you read through Numbers chapter 12, it tells the story of Miriam and Aaron opposing Moses. And essentially, they say, hey, doesn't God speak to us? He doesn't just speak to Moses. And they try to kind of puff themselves up. And here's where we see ourselves, don't we? Here's the truth. Under God, we all have been placed under someone's authority. You know, I'm here, the student pastor of the church. I am placed under Kevin's authority. He is my authority figure. As a citizen of the United States, I am placed under the authority of the United States government, and I have to obey the laws. As youth, you're placed under your parents' authority. And all our lives, we're called to honor and obey our parents. And here's the deal. No matter what, whether you're an employee, whether you're at school and you have a teacher, all of us have been given authority figures in our lives. And does that mean that they're perfect? No, of course not. No authority figure is perfect. No person is perfect. But we've all been given godly authority. And Moses was God's chosen person to lead the people of Israel. And so this is what happens. Aaron and Miriam, think about this. Basically kind of the second and third in command. You've got Aaron and Miriam who are there. They begin to grumble in their hearts against Moses, and they're talking amongst themselves when God knows this, and he basically comes to them and says, you cannot do this. Moses is my chosen man. Moses is, and he gives a great description of Moses, and this is something to keep in mind. He's more than a prophet. He's someone who I speak to face. He's someone who I've chosen. And so God comes to them in a cloud outside the tent of meeting, and Miriam becomes leprous, and her punishment for all of this is that she has to spend 7 days outside of the camp. And remember, she's got leprosy, this horrible skin disease that causes her to be unclean, and she has to spend time outside of the camp. And what can we learn from this as we apply the Old Testament to our own lives? First, we can look at ourselves and see Miriam, who basically opposed the authority God has for us. We are all sinners who rebel against God and go astray. And yet, we know that because of what Christ has done for us, we can be brought from outside of the camp, outside of the family of God, to the inside. And so even as we look at this text, we see God's grace, that he didn't just kill him on the spot. He gave him a chance to repent. And upon that, she comes back in. And they treat Moses with the respect that is his due. Now, let's flip over to Proverbs chapter 4, verses 1 through 4 real quick. And here's what we read in the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs pleads with us to pursue the wisdom of God and follow in his ways. The book of Proverbs presents the world in very black and white terms, basically saying, if you follow the way of the Lord, you're going to, by and large, experience a life of blessing. If you don't follow the way of the Lord, you are going to experience hardship. You're going to experience difficulty. And so this is what it says in verse 4. The author here says, let your heart hold fast my words, keep my commandments, and live. He's telling us, he's impressing upon us the importance. Live according to my ways. Don't make yourself believe that somehow culture knows better. Don't make yourself believe that somehow other sources know better. No, know the ways of the Lord and live. Get wisdom, he says. Get wisdom above everything else. And if we do that, then we can be assured that, our lives aren't going to be free from pain. Our lives aren't going to be free from suffering. God calls us to suffer and to show his glory that way. But listen, if we follow God's ways, then we can know we're pleasing him. And by and large, that is going to work out so much better in our lives. It's always going to work out better. But even just from a comfort standpoint, to live according to God's wisdom is the way to go. And there's no question about that. So guys, as we jump back into it, I'm excited for us, and hope you have a good rest of the day. I'll see you tomorrow.